This is the Nikon Z7 and we are going to talk to Nikon about it. Photokina 2018 coverage is brought to you by Manfrotto. Imagine more.
So we are here in Photokina 2018. We are talking to Dirk Jasper from Nikon. Hello,
yes,
Dirk.
Welcome.
And it's nice to meet you. We talked to you the last Photokina.
True.
And we have a couple of questions from you, both from our readers and for ourselves. So let's start. When did you actually start working on the Nikon Z series cameras and lenses?
Well, basically we started truly several years ago. If you would put it like this, actually the base work we use for the Z series is also, some of it is coming even from the Nikon 1 series. Some of the core technology, focal plane, sensor, AF technology, which we introduced with the Nikon 1 system at that time. There were a lot of learnings and a lot of technology transfer, evolution of this technology, then also partly coming into the Z series. So if you would like to call it like that, we started with Nikon 1.
That's an interesting answer. Talking about some of the lenses that you actually introduced to the Nikon Z series, you are going to release the Nikon Z58mm 0.95, which
Correct.
is a really large but very, very fast lens. Is it going to be? It's going to be a manual focus only lens,
yes,
that you said. But actually, why is that? Is it because the elements inside the lens are so heavy that the motors had to be very, very large to move them?
It is a matter of controlling optical quality to guarantee that you have really the best outstanding. The concept of the 0.95 Noct Nikkor is to have flawless quality wide open. And we know that there are other lenses on the market, excellent lenses on the market, having that aperture. But also everyone knows that you have to slightly stop down to become, let's say, or to get a better quality, sharp to the edges. With a 0.95 being created in a way that you have no chromatic aberrations in the edges, that round objects stay round, don't become elliptic or even lens-shaped. You don't want to have that, getting all these things distorted. There are a lot of gives and takes which you have to look into. And so it's all about the optical excellency, and that's why we said, okay, this is not a fast working lens. This is a proof of concept which should show what is possible with the system. If we look at, there are really well-known and really good lenses from competition. Just to mention the Zeiss Otus, we all know is really a top-notch lens, and I think we might see a new king in that class, hopefully. That's our intention.
We are hoping to test it so we
Yes.
It's a much faster lens. The Otus is 1.4, this is 0.95.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once and for all, was the decision to go for such a large diameter mount in the Z series cameras based, at least in part, on the option to squeeze in the future a larger sensor, or maybe there was another reason?
Well, the primary reason is actually to build a system which is future-proof. You can imagine that, especially with a company like Nikon, changing the mount, we had huge discussions. We had a lot of discussions internally as well. The headquarters, the engineers, but also locally, that's a very brave move, actually. And the idea is, we're Nikon, if we bring something and we do such a drastic step, it needs to work for the next decades. It's not like, we do that every 5 years. That's not possible, and no one would actually forgive us, and they shouldn't. So it's a bit playing, of course, what means playing? So it's laws of physics. If you go to a bigger mount and you have a wider opening also at the backside of the lens, it's much, much easier to control quality, especially to the edges of the frame. The communication is one point as well between the camera and the lens, which has not so much to do with the size of the mount, but more about the electronics inside, of course. It is, in the end, we could have done a bigger mount. A bigger mount would have meant eventually bigger lenses, bigger system as well. So we found this is actually the best balance between quality and size.
What can you tell us about the EXPEED 6 processor that you have in the Z series cameras compared to previous EXPEED processors?
Yeah. Well, as you know, I mean, this is a totally different beast compared to DSLR. So the sensor design is different. You have the focal plane, autofocus. You have the metering on the sensor as well. All in the DSLR, you had three different sensors basically. One for autofocus, one for metering, and one for taking the picture. Everything is now on one. And the EXPEED is not just one processing unit. Actually, it's a concept. EXPEED is a concept. There are different components working together to create the picture. And with every new generation, it's not only to control what is inside, but to better the image quality, to become faster in processing, to guarantee that oversampling, for example, from video signals works really well, that the data is in line what we expect in terms of quality, that you get the right information out of the electrical data into an analog, or get the analog information into something, which you can work with, like having really good information out of dark shadows, so you can still pull up the shadows without issues, without color, whatever shifts coming up. So this EXPEED generation is really the next step in image quality. Even if we say, look, this is the 45 megapixels, it's very similar to D850. But you will see that overall the dynamic range is slightly better in terms of color, reproduction, and so on. And with the Z6 also, that's a completely new sensor design, which has nothing to do, for example, with the D750. It's a complete new design. And
Okay.
you'll see.
The Z6 has a full pixel readout. Talking about the Z6, has a full pixel readout in 4K, while the Z7, at least as far as we understand it, needs to apply pixel binning, although it doesn't have any crop in full frame mode, which is nice. What technological improvements need to occur in order to have a 40 plus megapixel camera with full pixel readout in 4K? Is it faster processing or something else?
Definitely, it's all about faster processing, managing the processing, the speed of the processing, managing the energy consumption of such processing, and the heat development, which comes with it as well, which is a significant part. As you can imagine, overheating electrical components is not very nice. Whether we talk about a camera, a telephone, whatever, no electronics like that. Plus that we have a negative side effect if the heat becomes too much, the sensor heats up, signal-noise ratio worsens, so all of this, there's a whole chain of things to be considered.
Okay, actually the second question of this sort might have a very similar answer.
Yeah.
Talking about limitations, something that I think none of the other manufacturers have in their current consumer level camera is 10-bit 422 internal. Why is that? Again, maybe the same answer?
Actually, that leads directly into what I was just saying. When we talk about 422 and 10-bit data, we have data which is, I think it's about factor 1,000 more to crunch and process, which takes a lot of energy. You need to have a super fast CPU or several CPUs, which will emit a lot of heat. Basically, if you want to put all of this into such a compact body, it would be close to melting, just maybe exaggerating a bit. You can probably run with 4K 60p and still manage somehow, but getting everything really run into such a compact body is super hard, and that's the reason why systems which can do that are so big. The majority is not actually the boards and the power which you put into it. Giant batteries is one, the board is the other, what heat sinks, what to do with the heat coming from there. And that would contradict actually the idea of such a compact system. Looking into the future, we know processing power will become stronger. Capabilities of such electronic equipment will evolve. So maybe for the future that will be an option, yes.
And of course now you can still do it in external recorders.
Exactly, 10-bit recording with analog, 422 recording. Also the convenience to go directly into a RAW format like ProRes. So that, of course, is...
I think that you announced some cooperation with Atomos.
Exactly. So our cameras fully support the Atomos Open protocol, and actually Atomos has launched a product earlier this year, the Atomos Ninja 5. Very nice compact external recorder, and this supports the N-Log natively, for example. And Atomos actually told us that they are rolling out these N-Log also to all the other recorders, or at least the latest ones, which record 10-bit 4:2 as well. So that will take some time, but then you will also have native N-Log support there.
That's actually interesting news. I didn't know that they're actually releasing this to other monitors.
Yes, they're planning to. I mean, they're quite busy, as you can imagine. So, but yeah, and as mentioned, Nikon is also about to publish the lookup tables for the N-Log, so that these become available also for software developers who want to access or want to build their own solutions. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting news.
Yeah.
Like some of the other high megapixel cameras, the Z7 is quite limited when shooting in fast succession. So I think it has only 5.5 frames per second with continuous exposure and focus, and only 18 images in the buffer in 14-bit. What needs to happen in order to see a significant improvement in this front? Again, talking about processors.
Well, basically, it comes back to processing, heat management, but also, I mean, the camera goes up to 9 frames per second in full resolution, okay, then the auto exposure is fixed on the first frame. But yeah, I mean, this is actually more than what we can do with the D850, for example, which goes maximum to 8 frames, 9 frames, but then in crop mode, and then with a battery grip and a D5 battery. So all of this is inside this compact body without any additional equipment. Plus, talking about the 24 megapixels at 6, then you'll have a higher frame rate just because there's less data to crunch again.
Yeah. So basically, we're keep getting back to the same limitations that the general technology currently have.
There are, yes, of course. There are always decisions which you have to take. You could put stronger processors in there, which would have a negative impact on your energy household, so to say, which means that heat is the other one. So, meaning if you consume more energy, you have to live with the question, okay, do I want to have a shorter battery life? Or do I want to take a bigger battery? If I take a bigger battery, I will have a bigger camera. So it's a lot to consider from a manufacturer in this.
Okay. Why did you choose a single XUD card and not maybe a dual UHS or even UHS2 or even UHS3, which goes up to, I think, 620 megabyte plus per second? There's also an upcoming SD Express, which goes up to almost 1 gigabyte per second. And some of the new SD cards are also more rigid than the older ones or the existing ones.
Tougher
so so it's closer to the XQD ruggedness, basically. So why is this decision?
Several reasons, actually. I mean, Nikon was one of the first companies actually introducing the double slot to the broader market. And the simple reason at that time was that storage media was not reliable enough. We know that CF cards at that time, I mean, that started all with CF cards. CF cards were very vulnerable due to the way how the contacts were built. You had these very small metal pins inside the camera, they bent, they broke, or you had the small contacts on the card side were with sand or whatever sort of dust were blocked, and then it was a nightmare to get that out. And so it made sense to have a backup. Same for SD cards in the end. I mean, we're now coming to, as you said, there are tough SD cards coming. But before, SD cards were much more flimsy, easy breaking, and so on, and not very tough. Actually, CF was more tough, but had the issue with the pins. SD cards were breaking easily. The contacts are. Now with the, and that was also one of the reasons why we started with XQD as a new format, actually from D4 onwards, D4, D4S. We have the D5 now, the D8, 850, D500, all of them have XQD because of the performance. The speed, read and write speed, is massively better than every standard card which you can get today. If I talk about SD tough cards, they go up to 200, 300 MB per second, which is amazing for an SD card actually, but that's still slower than what XQD does. XQD is super reliable. We had zero data loss actually experience ever with the cards which we used, and got a lot of positive feedback from the pro photographers working in sports and so on, which do a lot of frames and crunch a lot of data there. And also for the convenience to have raw data on one card and JPEG data on the other card, for example, because the transmission again of the data would take so much more time. So you first transfer the JPEGs and then you would take some time to transfer NEF, let it run and you go and eat something. It's not necessary with XQD, it's just on the fly. And still, if you feel it takes too long, then you first transfer the JPEGs and then you transfer the raw data. So yeah, it is, again, we could have put in 2 card slots, saying then we put an SD card slot, or we put a second XQD card slot in there, like in the D5 today. But that would have meant a bigger camera again. So, I mean, yeah, we see development announcements on this fair, and you see the result of putting in a second card slot there as well. Yeah.
Okay. In your internal testing, this is moving to a completely different line of questioning about lenses. In your internal testing, did you find any clear downside to the phase Fresnel technology that you now have in 2 lenses, the 300 and the 500 PF? If not, why not make all telephoto lenses with PF technology?
Yeah. The PF glass has the big advantage that it's much more lightweight, of course, than you work just with classic glass elements. However, the resolution factor of classic glass, if we want to call it like that, is actually better, and it is easier also to create a lens which has then a wider aperture. The downside of PF glass is that it is more vulnerable, so it is a bit more, how to say, it can break more easy if it would get really a tough hit. We know that there are other professional lenses on the market which also feature PF technology as well, and all of them are super reliable. But for Nikon, we decided to go in and stay into that direction for the professional gear.
We have a few quick questions from our readers. So the first one is, as a D5, this is the phrasing of the person who sent this to us. As a D5 user, I'm very curious about the future of DSLR flagships. Does Nikon see the future of Z-series mirrorless cameras eventually taking the position of core and DSLR flagship and completely taking over the entire professional DSLR lineup?
Yeah, that might eventually happen, but for time being, it's clearly so that we say that DSLR and Nikon Z series will go side by side. There are a lot of reasons still to buy a DSLR, and we will keep on releasing new DSLR, we will keep on releasing new F-mount lenses, we will also keep on releasing new lenses for Z-mount, and Z7 and 6 are just 2 numbers, so there are quite a few numbers left, so I think there will be some more to see over the next few years. But yeah, I mean, we also have to look, where does the market go, what are the possibilities. I think that if we look into a longer prospect, a longer period, that we might see that the weight of mirrorless and DSLR will change, and mirrorless become bigger, DSLR might become smaller, but yeah.
Okay, quick, very simple question. Does the new Z cameras work when using them with, say, the 500mm PF lens with a Z mount and a 1.4x teleconverter? So
yes,
this combination.
Yes, it does, and without any limitations. So whatever you do on a DSLR camera with this combination, or also other lenses in combination with converters, you can do the same on the Z camera. Actually, what the Z does, it adds 5x vibration reduction. Even 500, okay, has a built-in optical VR, which is 2x optical compensation, and the camera will add another 3 layers, 3 axes, sorry, not layers. Yes, it does, without any limitation in speed or optical quality. Yeah.
That's a great answer. Different question, why did you decide to develop a battery pack but not a grip for the vertical shots with the Z6 and 7?
Yeah, well, the concept in the very beginning was to have a very compact system, and we were targeting, actually in the beginning, not so much the professional users, to be honest. In the end, the camera turned out to become so powerful because actually we were also pushing, and we had a lot of pushing demand from customers as well with certain wishes, that it was actually at a certain point too late to integrate that as a fully functional battery grip. However, yeah, one piece was maybe when we started testing on SEPA guidelines. You know, the SEPA guidelines say you have to test the battery life in this way. So you shoot, you let the camera rest, you review pixel, blah, blah, blah. And the result, as it also stands in our brochures and on the website, was 330 shots, where you say, a bit underwhelming. Yeah. But actually then in the end, it turned out when you actually use the camera, photographers out there who shot with it and journalists testing it. So easy to go to 800, 900, 1200 shots with normal shooting on one battery, which is the same actually as in D750, D850. And other guys who do a lot of high frame rate stuff or time lapse, they said, easily 2000 shots out of one battery. So that's the real life application. And so I think it was a mix of coming a bit late with all these professional requests, seeing how powerful this cameras became, and then maybe also a bit like we don't really know yet how it will perform in real life, and it turned out to be much better than we actually thought from the SEPA guideline testing.
But you do have at least an option to increase the battery life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, this one goes, as mentioned, if we talk about SEPA guidelines, if you go for video, it's 85 minutes in 4K shooting out of one battery. That's actually very long for such a compact battery, and also shows how different or weird obviously the SEPA cycle is compared to...
It's not entirely realistic, I think.
No, some of it's surely not. I think it's a bit more close to real life for consumer DSLR, for example, when we look at the testing cycle. But here we have camera systems which are, if I compare to DSLR, constantly in live view. So that makes a difference for sure. Yeah. Well.
Okay. Can Nikon include an option to easily add markers during video recording? So let's say that you say something interesting during a video recording, somebody can push a button and then you can look at this specific point in the editing software afterwards.
Honestly, I have to check, maybe that's even the case, but because we have the technology inside the D500 and the D5, where you can put this sort of marker into the material just by pushing a button on the back side of the camera. I didn't test it, I didn't check it on the Z. If it is not there, then I think we can add it by firmware update, yes.
Okay, very interesting. Final question, can you update the Z6 and 7 firmware so the information on the EVF and the monitor will rotate basically in 90 degrees when you shoot in portrait mode?
That's a very good question. I don't know if this is possible. Basically, what we have is an OLED display. It's an OLED display inside, so it could be an option. The camera does not do it now, I must say, but I think it's an interesting option, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.